there is a story today from Brett McMurphy about that Zach's ex-wife has filed a protection order against him. Supposedly it was filed on Friday, and it brought up a 2009 incident involving Zach and his ex-wife. We told you the story about last week with the criminal trespassing charge. Zach was never arrested, trying to drop off his son back on May 12th at a residence. She took a picture, and all this has been going on. Brad Koffel is knee-deep in it. He is Zach Smith's attorney. Brad, we appreciate you joining us because I know you're running around in 10 different directions. But I want to start with that story by Brett McMurphy. It talks about a protection order filed against Zach on Friday. What exactly is going on here?
Well, it's too bad that this has to be dealt with in the media. This really, as with any other couple that's going through divorce, ought to be dealt with in a domestic relations court. But unfortunately, it somehow she's filed this protection order. His ex-wife's filed a domestic violence protection order. Although there are no accusations that he has assaulted her or threatened her in any way. And the reason there are those accusations is because he hasn't. In terms of what's been drug up in the past from 2009, which she references in her protection order, it sounds really bad. These headlines look bad. Problem is, it's just not true. And whatever happened down in Florida between he and his wife was dismissed the very next day or 2 days later, and the accusations then were false, just like this criminal trespass thing that she's filed against him is false. And it's too bad that Zach has to deal with all this stuff still. And I know it's false because it's been dismissed. It was dismissed in Florida. This criminal trespass will be dismissed, and this protection order, when we have a hearing on August 3rd, that's not going anywhere either. And this is not false bravado. This belongs in domestic relations court.
So what is that your next move then, to try to get this whole thing dismissed?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a choice. I mean, it's just, if there were merits to some of this stuff, I would be talking to a prosecutor. I'd be talking to Zach. We'd probably be making some filings in court, mea culpas, letters of contrition, apology. It's just all false. And it's too bad that this particular ex-husband has a high-profile position, a high-profile program, and has to have his dirty laundry aired out in the media.
How do you the story is out there, and you're saying it's false. How do you go about trying to prove that it's false? I mean, you really don't have to do that, but it just, the media, as you mentioned, having the story out, and because of his position, this is a story. Otherwise, no one would really care about it. Is there anything like you can do as his lawyer to try to, other than what you're doing now, saying it's false, to try to let people know that, this isn't as it seems?
Yeah, no, we don't. I think she was either not properly advised by a lawyer or ill-advised by a lawyer to go off and file this protection order, because now it's put this front and center, and now it's going to force her and Zach to have a hearing in domestic or in the Delaware County Common Police Court, and it's all going to come out that this is false, and it clearly was not well thought through. It appears as though she filed this a day after this story broke last week about the criminal trespass, which also is not true, and it eventually is going to, hopefully Zach we get our day in court to deal with this stuff when witnesses can go under oath and subject to cross-examination. You can have someone who's neutral and detached judge to decide what's fact and what's fiction. But I have zero concerns about Zach coming out of this scathed in any way in the court system. My concern is Zach's going to come out of this very scathed in the court of public opinion in the media. And the only way to fight these things is to get on the air and push them back in the bottle where they came from.
Well, I can tell you, I mean, just, and I'm sure you know, Campy and I were talking about it earlier, on social media, there is, from Ohio State fans and everything, like, hey, it's time for Urban to part ways with this guy and move on, and Urban is so tough on domestic violence, and now here's a guy that has domestic violence in his past. My question to you is, because of the 2009 incident, which you say is completely false, and the charges were dropped, but there are people that are saying, in court of public opinion, that, see, he has domestic violence in his past. Because you have something in your past, but the charges are dropped, does the law look at that as he has domestic violence in his past, or is it just something that was looked at and dismissed?
When your wife accuses you of having an affair, and she may or may not have, and there may or may not be merits behind that, and she goes nuts, you have to either get out of the house or contain her. And what happened was a situation between these two where he was forced to defend himself. He restrained her. She calmed down. She called the police. The police came, had a must-arrest policy. He was arrested. He was released. And within a day or two, everything was dismissed because there was no domestic violence. It was self-defense. Mm-hmm. And that marriage produced 2 children and had many years thereafter of a marriage. It didn't survive until 2015 or 16, but it was false because it was dismissed, and it's dismissed because it was false. And now he's got to deal with this thing right now, and this perception that he's somehow an abuser of pregnant women. And it's horrible. It sounds bad. It is bad. The problem is it's just not true.
Visiting with Brad Koffel, who is the attorney for Zach Smith. I want to go back to the criminal trespassing situation, which we found out about last week, and back to May the 12th. And I know you talked about this on our sister station, WTVN, but take us through exactly what happened there. And Zach is saying that he is not guilty of this. What happened, and how did we get to where we are now with that case?
So they have shared parenting, and I'm sharing information that it needs to be shared, has previously been shared, about the intimate, the marriage and this joint shared parenting agreement. He has his parental rights, she has her parental rights, and he was bringing his son back to her place after a special event with his family.
Yep.
He didn't know where she wanted him to drop their son off. He was waiting for her to tell him. She said, drop him off at the clubhouse at her apartment. He went to her clubhouse at the apartment complex. She wasn't there. He drove by her place, her apartment, the driveway. She was out there. He drops off their son. She takes a picture. She calls the police. He drives away. She calls the police and somehow gets a police officer to believe that that's criminal trespass. That's not criminal trespass. He had privilege to be there, dropping his son off. There was no court order that prohibited him from dropping his son off at his ex-wife's driveway. And so this is false. Just like she accused him of domestic violence in 2009. It's false. It was dismissed. The criminal trespass would be dismissed, and this protection order designed for women who are in immediate and present risk of being harmed. There's nothing in her affidavit at all that says that he's even been near her and to have any type of contact. So it's a false accusation, and it's horrible when it comes in someone who's in the public eye like that.
You mentioned, Brad, the protection order hearing is August 3rd, I believe. What about the criminal trespassing? You're hoping that, and sound confident that these things are going to be dismissed. What's the next stage on date and the next stage on that one?
The criminal trespass has to be dismissed because he had privilege to be there to do what he did. I don't have a date on that. The domestic violence protection order was granted ex parte, which means she can go in, fill out a form, and present just her own word that's something that she fears for her safety. And that's going to be granted, and that it was granted. That's going to be dismissed too. I've read her affidavit that doesn't even come close to rising to the statutory level to get one of these protection orders in place. It was granted on a temporary basis. Judges will tend to do that. They'd rather be wrong in the beginning than wrong later. So I don't have a problem with the magistrate signing off on this. But it's going to have to be dismissed because it's not even close to there being a domestic violence situation between Zach and his ex-wife.
Is the timing of this suspicious to you with training camp starting and all of that stuff, or does stuff happen and timing doesn't mean anything to lawyers? I asked that because, I mean, it's a story now, and tomorrow is Big Ten Media Days, and camp. You mentioned August 3rd. August 3rd is the first day of camp. Like, all of this is like it's odd to me that it's all coming out right now.
I don't believe in coincidences, but I don't understand why this woman must really hate her ex-husband to go to these lengths. But the timing, I don't know. I really can't speak to the timing, and I don't pay much attention to it. I've got a job to do here with Zach, but I hope that everyone gives the guy a benefit of the doubt. Everything I've said is based upon public record, and we'll deal with it in the courtroom as much as we can, and hopefully not have to deal with it much more in the media.
All right, Brad, I know you've been running around doing 100 things today. We really appreciate you taking a few minutes and talking with us.
Yeah, thank you.